Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my #1 product from my top 10 high-end makeup brands. I did the drugstore version of this video a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of you wanted to see my high-end pick, so that is what we are going to do today. This one was a little bit harder. I don't own as much high-end makeup as I do drugstore makeup, but after going through everything, I think I came up with a pretty thorough list. So if you guys are curious to see what my top brands are and what my #1 products in each of those brands are, we are going to get into it today. Really quickly though, if you are new here, I want to wish you a special welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Also make sure notifications are turned on. And with that said, let's just get right into it. All right, let's go in reverse order. We're gonna go with my number 10 high-end makeup brand. For this one, I went with the brand Kosas. I've only tried out a handful of things from them. They are kind of a newer brand on my radar, but my #1 product from them will probably not surprise you guys. It's gonna be the Revealer Concealer. I also love the foundation. I actually have both the foundation and this concealer on today, but this concealer is exceptional. I think it is so great. It is so hydrating. It's comfortable. It doesn't settle into any fine lines. It's kind of the perfect consistency. It's not too thick and cakey, but it's also not so lightweight that it doesn't cover really well. Another thing I really love about both the Kosas concealer and the foundation, I love their shade range, and not just the shade range, but the undertone ranges that they offer. They have some really interesting undertones that can sometimes be hard to find, especially if you have more olive skin tones. I have two shades here. They actually both work really well for me. They're only slightly different. I have 3.2 and 04, and they both work really well. I think 3.2 is a little bit more olivey in tone. It is a little bit lighter, but I can wear both of these. They are fantastic concealers. If you have dry skin, if you have a lot to cover, but you don't want something too heavy or cakey, I highly recommend these. One of my favorites. My number 9 brand, I'm going with Benefit. This one kind of surprised me. I was very late to the game with Benefit products in general. They were for a long time just a high-end brand that didn't really interest me all that much, but the more I've tried from them, the more I've realized why a lot of people really love them. They do make some fantastic stuff, but I've got to go for my #1 product with the Precisely My Brow. I think I can safely say if price was not an issue, this would be my #1 brow pencil. It's the perfect consistency. The shade is perfect. It gives you really precise strokes. It's nice and pigmented, but it's also not too waxy. It's nice and stiff, but it still deposits color down. I do think there are a lot of good alternatives out there if you need something more affordable, because it is a little bit pricey. I found some really good ones. I love the Ulta Beauty brow pencil, as you guys know. A lot of other companies do good brow pencils at the drugstore. Also, a lot of K-beauty brands do some really good slim brow pencils, but I still think this is my very favorite. It is so good. Really quick to apply, but you can really get some precision with this thing. If you don't mind spending a little bit more on your brow products, I do think this is fantastic. For my number 8 brand, I'm going to rank Milk. Now, I feel like this is one that I could see rising up in my rankings as I've tried a little bit more from them. I have found some more things that I really love from them. In fact, I kind of wanted to mention the Hydro Grip Primer, but I've only had this thing for like a month, so I'm gonna hold off on that one. But what I can absolutely say is my #1 product from Milk is gonna be the Milk Lip and Cheek in Work. You might have thought I was gonna say their cream bronzer. That is still a favorite of mine, but I think I have one cream bronzer that I like even more than that one, and I just love this as both a lip and a cheek product. There are a lot of products like this that I really love. I love Personas. I love the Flower Beauty ones, but this one might be my favorite consistency. It's slightly more of like a matte or satiny finish, but it looks really good both on the lips and the cheeks. This one in particular is the perfect color, at least for me, kind of what I like in both a basic cheek color or a basic lip color. I'm actually wearing this on my lips today. It's the color that you see here. I do have a little bit of matte swirl underneath. It's just the perfect shade. It's kind of pink, it's kind of peach, it's not too dark or too light. Such a good product. I know I've been talking about it for years, and it's still way up there. I think this is absolutely amazing. Ranked at number 7, I'm gonna go with the brand Nabla, in particular the Nabla Cutie Palette. I know I have been raving about this thing for years, and I also kind of feel like I might be one of the few people that really loves this. I have heard from a few of you that didn't love it quite as much as I do, and the reviews on this specific eyeshadow palette are not the best of the Nabla palettes. Now, I love the Nabla eyeshadows in general. They make one of my very favorite higher end makeup formulas, and also just their palettes have really good color stories. But this one, there's just something so special about it. I reach for this palette all the time. I've had it for about 2 or 3 years now, and it still surprises me how often I reach for this thing. It's kind of a basic palette, looks like a simple basic color story. Actually, kind of wish I would have worn it today because it matches my shirt so perfectly. I mean, hello. But there's just something really unique about particularly like the tones in here. They're kind of brown and neutral, but they have a little bit of like a blushy tone to them, but they're also not like a pink. They're just very interesting. They are so flattering on the eyes. You can get a very soft, natural look with this palette, but you can also get a very bold, more smoky look that's just really glamorous. I love the Creamy Matte formulas. I've talked to you guys a lot about those. I think they just show up really well in your eyes, especially if you have more mature eyelids. A formula like this can be very favorable because sometimes if you put too many, if you're layering up eyeshadows and you already have really dry kind of liney eyelids, having that little touch of hydration in a formula like this I think can really help. I just love it. I think it's amazing. I love the looks that come out of this. They do sometimes take a little bit more time to work with because that formula really has to be built up slowly, but if you have the time to spend, the end look is out of this world. In my opinion, just such a great little palette. I know there's not a consensus on that, but in my opinion, I just think this thing is so great. For my number 6 brand, I'm gonna go with MAC. Now, MAC was like the pioneer of high-end makeup brands back in high school, if you were in high school in the 90s or before. Anyone that was really into makeup that used the good stuff was using MAC. They make so many good products. I was surprised I was looking at all the MAC things that I own and that I love. There is a ton of stuff, but the one that I went with as my number 1 is gonna be the Glow Play blushes, and particularly this shade, which is Blush Please. I have a few other shades that I really love as well. I love the shade Grand. I love the shade So Natural, I think, but this is my favorite. It's just such a good, looks good with anything, no matter what season, no matter what else you are wearing on your face or what clothing you're wearing. It goes with absolutely any look. It's the perfect nude shade for me. It's kind of pink. It sometimes looks cool toned, but it's also warm enough that it doesn't look off if you're wearing warmer tones. It looks good with anything. I am wearing this blush on my cheeks today. It's just one of those colors that never fails. And I love this formula. There are a lot of brands that have done formulas like this that I really like, but I think this is the very best. And I think this type of a blush formula is kind of the cream blush that even people that don't love cream blushes because they feel like they're too tacky or sticky or they melt off their face might like this formula because it's not quite as slippery as some other formulas can be or as pigmented. It's just really easy to use. I love these Glow Play blushes. I think they are so great. There's still some of the blushes that I reach for the very most, especially when I'm not wanting to think about what I'm wearing. Like, I'll just grab this because I know it's gonna look good and I don't have to think about it. We're down to my top 5. Coming in at number 5, I'm gonna go with ABH, Anastasia Beverly Hills. I was again surprised at how many products from Anastasia Beverly Hills I own and love. And not just eyeshadow palettes. I love their foundation. I love a lot of their brow products. But probably not surprising to you guys, had to go with an eyeshadow palette, and my number 1 from them is going to be the Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau palette. I just think this is one of the most perfectly curated palettes ever. I just love it so much. It's such a good, soft color story that's pretty neutral, but still kind of interesting at the same time. I love the looks that come out of this palette. I mean, this is one of those eyeshadow palettes that when I'm not really wanting to think about my makeup, I just want something that's gonna look good, that I don't have to worry too much about what I'm gonna pair together. I will grab this one because there's just so many things that you can reach for that you know are going to look good no matter what you combine together. I love the formulas. I actually think these shimmers are even better than some of her older shimmer formulas. They're just really nice and pigmented and metallic, but they're not too dry. They don't give you quite as much fallout. Well, I don't know. I think you still have to be careful with them. That is one thing about ABH. They have a lot of sparkle in them, so you do have to be a little bit careful how you apply them. But I still don't think these ones are quite as dry as some of the more kind of flaky shimmers that she would have in like the Soft Glam palette or in the Sultry palette. I think this is such a great palette. I think one of the best releases from 2022. I know it's one that I'll love for a very long time. If you like neutrals, but you like something more than just browns, this is the perfect color story for that. For my number 4 brand, I'm gonna go with Charlotte Tilbury. I love Charlotte Tilbury. I have a hard time trying out a lot of her products because they are so expensive, but I don't think I've ever tried anything from her that I really disliked. She does make really good quality stuff, and her packaging, I don't think anyone does packaging like Charlotte Tilbury does. For my number 1 product from Charlotte, I'm gonna go with the cream bronzer. This was a tricky one. I love her lip liners. I love her Hollywood Flawless filter, but this, you guys, is probably my favorite cream bronzer. I always hesitate to say that because I think the price tag on this is just so painful, and there are a lot of other cream bronzers I think are great that aren't quite as expensive, even from high-end like the Fenty one or the Milk one. But there's something really special about this formula. It's kind of more of like a matte finish, even though it is a cream, and it actually gives your cheeks a little bit of coverage. I don't know if that makes sense, but I do have some things to cover on my cheeks. I have a lot of like sunspots. I have a couple of kind of old acne scarring or hyperpigmentation marks that if I start to apply cream products on top of my foundation and concealer, sometimes those spots will kind of start to peek back through. But this actually adds an additional layer of coverage to those. It kind of like masks them a little bit as it adds color and shape. I really, really love it. Now I do think if you look up close, it can look a little bit more heavy or makeup-y, but I mean, if you're like really looking close, as in like your face is pressed up against a mirror, it just doesn't quite look as like natural looking, but I still love it. I think it's so, so great. The formula is great. The color, which is Fair, I have the shade Fair, I just think is amazing. Way expensive. I still sometimes have to almost cringe a little bit knowing that I spent almost $60 on this thing, but it is spectacular. Coming in the number 3 spot, the high-end makeup brand I'm going with is Natasha Denona. You guys know I love my Natasha Denona eyeshadows. They are fantastic. I have some other products from her that I really like as well. I actually like her foundation. I can't remember what it's called. Is it like the Face Glow? Yes, her Face Glow foundation. I really like this. She has a concealer I love. I love her gel liner. I love her lip liner. That was another thing that was like closely in the running. I love this I Need a Rose lip liner. But you guys probably all knew I was gonna pick an eyeshadow palette. The one I ended up going with, drum roll please, because this was a tough decision, is the Retro Glam palette. I think it's official. This one has surpassed my love for the Glam palette. Love that palette so much. If you do not like color at all, if you are just a totally basics kind of girl, that's probably going to be the one for you. But you guys, I just think this color story is so pretty. This was such a tough choice. I actually was laying in bed awake thinking about this choice between these two palettes last night, which normally makeup doesn't keep me up at night. It's usually like war and the collapse of Western civilization that keeps me awake. Not funny. True, but not funny. But I was literally up last night thinking about, do I really want to give this the number 1 spot? But I came to the conclusion that yes, I do. I just love this color story so much. I don't think it's probably for everyone because there is a lot of like minty green tones in here, but they're the prettiest minty greens. I am wearing this one on my eyes today. I don't know if you guys can see that kind of like bluey, minty color in the outer corner that is somehow still kind of neutral. It's just a very interesting color story. I love playing with this one. The combination of shades that you can put together is just endless. It's a really fun palette. If you don't mind a little bit of color in your life, if you're brave enough to wear a slightly minty green, it's just so stunning. I absolutely love it. The formulas are great across the board. The reviews on this palette, by the way, are almost perfect. And there are a lot of reviews on this one, which I thought was a little bit reassuring. I felt a little better about my decision after verifying that. Really great palette. Expensive, yes. But I do think Natasha's eyeshadow palettes in general are really good quality. All right, top 2 time for my number 2 brand. I'm gonna go with the brand Persona. Love this brand so much. I love Persona Cosmetics. They do send me some PR on occasion, so I've tried out a lot of their products, half of which I probably purchased on my own, half of which they may have sent me. And I don't think I have found anything from them yet that I disliked. The only thing was their cream bronzer because it did end up breaking me out just a little bit. But other than that, I think their products are amazing. But for my number 1 product, I've got to go with the first thing I ever bought from them, the Persona Original Identity Palette. It doesn't even come in this packaging anymore. I should probably get the updated packaging, but I still have so much product left inside here, and I do reach for this thing a lot. I think this is one of the best neutral eyeshadow palettes out there. It's just so good. The color story is amazing. It leans a little bit on the cool tone side. I can't remember if I ranked this palette when I did my ranking neutral eyeshadow palettes. I don't think I did, but I would probably put this on my scale from warm to cool as like a 3.5. It leans a little bit on the cooler tone neutral side, but it does still give you a couple warm tones in here. The shimmers are stunning, especially if you have more mature eyelids and you don't want anything too overly metallic or that's gonna emphasize anything. It's just absolutely amazing. Really good quality, really great formulas, easy to blend, super pigmented. In fact, I would caution you as you're dipping into these mattes, you do not need very much product at all. This thing will probably last me for generations, even if it was the only eyeshadow palette that I owned, because you just don't need very much. But I've got to give it to their number 1. I think this was their number 1 release. I think it still holds the number 1 spot. That leaves us with my number 1 high-end makeup brand, and I'm gonna go with Sydney Grace. I know some of you might consider this cheating because Sydney Grace is kind of an indie brand. They're not sold at any Sephora or any Ulta Beauty, but I could not leave them out. You guys know how much I love Sydney Grace, and I don't just love their eyeshadow palettes. I do particularly love their eyeshadows, but they actually have a lot of other great stuff that I have tried out as well. Their face products are amazing. Their new face palettes, which I mentioned in last month's favorites video. You guys, this thing, I have not stopped reaching for. It is so, so good. They also have some really good lip products as well, but had to go with an eyeshadow palette for my #1 pick, and it is going to be the Enduring Love palette still. I have mentioned there are a couple palettes that I think are close to bumping this one off of its #1 spot. Tiny Marvel palettes is really great as well. The newer one they released, the Unbreakable Bond, that one's pretty good too, but you guys, this one is one of the most perfect color stories, and it has some of the best Sydney Grace metallic shades and formulas ever. And I love all of Sydney Grace's metallic, so that is saying something. I just love this. It's mostly neutral. You do get a couple of pops of color in here, but man, the neutral looks that come out of these. I know these like matte shades right here all look kind of similar to each other and maybe kind of just blah, like they wouldn't really show up on you, but if you have medium to fair skin, they all show up and they show up very differently, and they are the most beautiful formulas. I also really love what Sydney Grace does with her eyeshadow palettes in that they usually release a light and a deep version, which is ingenious because I know depending on your skin tone, what someone might use as like a smoky shade in their outer corner is not going to work for everyone depending on their skin tone. So they do make some adjustments for shades like that, particularly their matte shades. I just love this palette. You guys know that I love it, and I cannot believe after all these years, I think I tried this out first in like 2019. I may have even ranked it that year as my #1 palette. It might still hold that #1 spot. Haven't done an official ranking video in a while, but I just don't know that there's anything that can quite knock this off. All right, you guys, and that is it. Those are the #1 products from my top 10 high-end makeup brands. What do you guys think about my list? Are you guys offended that I did not include a couple of your favorite brands? I did feel bad about leaving out a couple brands that were right there below the #10 spot. I mean, I had Fenty there, Patrick Ta, but ultimately, I just thought these ones either I owned and had tried out more from these brands so I knew them a little bit better, or I just like their stuff a little bit more. I'd love to hear from you guys. What is your #1 product from your #1 brand? What's at the top of your list? I would love to know that, so let me know down in the comments below. But that is going to do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let me give you one last reminder. Please subscribe before you leave, and I will see all of you very soon in my next video. Bye. Both of my ears are plugged right now. Like I have like some sort of weird sinus something going on. It's like when you're driving or when you're on a plane and like your ears need to pop, but they just won't. That's how I'm feeling right now, and I can't hear myself talk. So if I sound weird or if I'm talking loud, that is why. Oh my gosh, it's gonna drive me nuts. The makeup you're wearing, this goes well with anything. Hey, sneaky girl. Oh my gosh, you picked me flowers? Thank you. Those are beautiful. Where'd you find those? Up by the...
Yeah.
By the...
There's like millions.
Really?
Yeah.
Charlie just got home. She always picks flowers for me. It's the cutest thing. Oh gosh, I love having a little girl. It's so fun. Did I tell you I am wearing it on my cheeks today? Probably was obvious as I was like doing this, but sometimes I don't tell you guys those things and you question.